With 3 excellent Shovel Knight games down already, it's no surprise that the latest, Shovel Knight King of Cards, is another great 2D platforming adventure with excellent level design, charming characters, and fun new mechanics. What is a bit of a surprise, however, is how King of Cards grafts a well-designed but tonally inconsistent collectible card game onto the usual Shovel Knight platforming package. The result is like a delicious meal with a strange, unfamiliar sauce poured over it that I would have rather ordered on the side. King of Cards' prequel story is fittingly silly, but it fills in some remaining gaps in Shovel Knight's larger interconnected plot. You play as King Knight, a knight that dresses, acts, and behaves like a king despite not actually being one. He's the Jerry Lawler of Shovel Knight bosses, so to speak. He so desperately wants to be king that when he learns of a grand tournament for the card game Joustus that will crown its winner the King of Cards, he drops everything to enter. As always, Yacht Club delivers a surprising amount of heart with its storytelling. While King Knight isn't quite as likable as the noble Shovel Knight, the hopelessly love-struck Plague Knight, or the dark and mysterious Spectre Knight, the Archivist character is still pretty clever, despite anyone who has played the original game knowing exactly where it'll end up anyway. King Knight's platforming revolves around the 1-2 punch of a Wario-esque shoulder tackle and the resulting graceful aerial twirl that allows him to bounce off enemies, blocks, and other objects. It's not quite as thrilling as Spectre Knight's fast-paced aerial slashing style, or as creative as Plague Knight's bomb jump-centric gameplay, but it still offers a fun new way to overcome familiar obstacles. The magic that makes it work is how you're cleverly restricted. Without something to shoulder tackle, King Knight can't bounce back and start to spin, and after that initial hit, he must use his spin to bounce again before he's able to string it into another dash midair. It's a great rule set for an otherwise fairly simple idea that forces you to think on the fly about what order you need to kill enemies or break blocks in order to get through any given platforming challenge. King of Cards is a little easier than prior Shovel Knight games thanks to its generous heart drops, but there's still plenty to test even experienced Shovel Knight vets. In true Shovel Knight fashion, King Knight also gets a bevy of heirlooms that essentially act as special magic attacks, offering a little extra flexibility in how you're able to conquer the many hazards it throws at you. There's a great selection here, and even though a lot of them are very situational, they reward you for thinking about how you can best use your tools in order to make a tough screen much easier. These heirlooms are usually bought with merit medals, a currency that can either be found hidden in each level or won through a game of Joustus. Which brings me to my biggest and really only problem with King of Cards: the cards. Joustus resembles something closer to Final Fantasy VIII's Triple Triad than the likes of Hearthstone or even The Witcher 3's Gwent. You go back and forth pushing cards and setting up others to block pushes until all the spaces on the field are filled, at which point whoever holds the most gem spaces wins. There's actually a ton of depth in this simple and easy to understand premise. But as well designed as it is, Joustus just simply isn't as fun as King of Cards platforming. Joustus-themed levels on the overworld essentially served as speed bumps, stuttering my enjoyment of the main game. The tutorial for Joustus also doesn't go over anything more than the basics, leaving you to figure out the deeper strategy for yourself. This can be extremely frustrating because every time you lose a match, you automatically lose one of the cards in your deck. You can mercifully buy those cards back, but that costs money that you could be using to improve King Knight with health buffs or new types of armor. Thankfully, this minigame is entirely optional after the first 4 or 5 matches that make up its introduction. But since winning Joustus always offers merit medals, you'll be missing out on a large chunk of the important and otherwise limited currency. It's essentially like if you could reach a level cap in The Witcher 3, and the only way to improve Geralt further was by winning Gwent matches. Joustus undoubtedly weighs down the campaign in King of Cards, but the overall package is also lifted up by some smart changes to the Shovel Knight formula that help balance that out. There's a lot more levels this time around, and while they are shorter, they are also much tighter in their design, allowing for some really cleverly themed levels that never outstay their welcome. Many of these stages also have secret exits that encourage both exploration and replayability. And of course, the music is just as incredible as ever. While most of the music is carried over from previous games, there are a couple of new tracks that are among the best in the series, like this one playing right now. Composer Jay Kaufman is a musical wizard. Like previous entries, Shovel Knight King of Cards is a blast. This is hands down the largest and most ambitious Shovel Knight game yet, with more levels, more dialogue, branching paths, and a clever new style of platforming. Not all of that ambition pays off though, and its intrusive Joustus card game can slow down the momentum too much. It's not mandatory, but it felt like I would be missing out on a huge chunk of content by not participating in it. Nonetheless, King of Cards still wraps up this first era of Shovel Knight with style and flair, befitting of a king. Knight. For more Shovel Knight King of Cards, check out the first minutes of the game. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.